I gave them keys. They gave me hell. I learned exactly how much chaos a stranger can unleash inside four walls, and how long it takes to scrub fear out of your own home. It was 2003 when I decided to try renting out the apartment my uncle left me. I was 27, broke, and newly single after a 5-year relationship that ended with him taking the dog and me taking the debt. The apartment was a small 2-bedroom in St. Paul, near the industrial edge where buses barely ran on Sundays and half the neighbors still smoked on their balconies. It wasn't pretty, but it was mine, and I thought, why not turn it into something? I had a full-time job at a print shop, and couldn't move in myself, so I figured I'd rent it out, little side income, maybe even save up. It sounded so simple, like something adults did. No Airbnb, no Booking.com, http://booking.com, no smart locks or security deposits through apps, just me, a Motorola flip phone, and an ad in the local paper. 2BR apt, $540 per mo, no pets. Call after 6, I got 3 calls the first day. One guy asked if I was cool with snakes, another wanted to pay in weed, and the third, Jess and Kenny, seemed normal, really normal. She worked at Target. He did something with construction. They didn't have kids or loud voices, just one beat-up red Ford and a microwave they insisted on moving themselves. They were nice, maybe too nice, but I was new. I just wanted someone to pay rent on time and not burn the place down. They paid cash. I gave them keys. And for 3 months, nothing weird happened. Rent came in on the 1st. No neighbor complaints, no smells, no drama, until October, when the 4th of the month came and went and no envelope showed up. I called. No answer. Went by the place. No lights, no sounds, mailbox stuffed full. I knocked anyway, nobody opened. So I waited another day, then another, then finally called a friend with a spare set and said I was going in. The first thing I noticed was the silence, and the second, the smell. It wasn't rotting, just wrong, like a room that used to have life and didn't anymore. I opened the door and stopped breathing. The furniture was gone. Not just a lamp or a TV, all of it, couch, chairs, coffee table, mattress, even the damn shower curtain, gone. The fridge was unplugged and open, the carpet rolled up like someone meant to come back for it and didn't, curtain rods unscrewed, light bulbs missing, bathroom mirror cracked. I remember standing in that hollow little room and thinking, this is what theft feels like when it's personal. I didn't cry. I just stood there, holding my phone and trying to remember if I'd signed anything that could even help me now. I hadn't, of course I hadn't. There was no lease, no ID copies, no deposit, no paper trail, just my blind trust in 2 people I met in daylight who smiled enough and wore clean shirts, and that's how it started, my short and disgusting journey as a landlord. I told myself it was a one-time thing, a dumb mistake, so I fixed the damage, bought new furniture, borrowed a cordless drill and a vacuum and got that apartment back in shape like I was trying to erase what happened by painting over it. And when Dana showed up, she seemed fine, older than me, worked at Walgreens, single mom with a teenage daughter named Kendra, quiet girl, barely spoke, eyes always on the floor. Dana said she just needed somewhere stable, something long-term, and I needed someone boring and employed. She gave me cash up front and even brought her own vacuum. I took it as a good sign. I printed a lease off Google and felt like I was finally doing this like an adult, and for a while it was fine. First month, rent on time. Second month, some noise complaints from neighbors. I ignored them. People complain about everything. But then I dropped by one evening because Dana said her kitchen light was acting weird, and the second I opened the door I knew something was off. The place smelled like sweat and smoke and spilled vodka. There were people I didn't recognize just sitting on the floor. One guy asleep in a lawn chair, a dog in the hallway I'd never seen before. Dana said, "Oh, they're just friends of Kendra's." Like that explained everything. I should have shut it down right there. But I didn't. I left and tried to pretend it would settle. But it didn't. Third month. Cops show up in the middle of the night because someone set off the fire alarm, neighbor says. Kids were throwing bottles off the balcony. Someone pisses in the elevator. And I'm sitting at home wondering how the fuck I got here again. So I go over the next day, no warning, just knock loud enough for the whole building to hear. Dana answers in a bathrobe, doesn't even look surprised. Behind her it's chaos, music blasting, sink full of dishes, mattress in the living room, Kendra yelling at someone in the hallway, and I say, "We need to talk," and Dana rolls her eyes and says, "Talk to my lawyer," like this was all a joke, like I was the one causing problems. I didn't wait. I called the cops that night, said I wanted to file for eviction, and the guy on the line just sighed and said, you'll need paperwork, like I wasn't the first idiot landlord to get burned. I didn't know eviction could take that long. I thought once you called the cops someone just came and made them leave. But no, it took weeks, court forms, signed notices, scheduled appointments with a county deputy, and in that time they knew they were leaving and decided to take the place with them, not the stuff. No, that would have been too clean. They left all their things, every stained mattress, every broken plate, every rotting bag of groceries in the fridge. They left it all and destroyed what they couldn't take, like it was personal, like the apartment itself had insulted them. I remember opening the front door on the day they were finally gone and standing there for a full minute just staring, trying to process what I was looking at. The walls were tagged with Sharpie, the word bitch written 3 times on the bathroom mirror, holes in the drywall, cigarette burns in the carpet. Someone had stuffed socks in the toilet and flushed until it overflowed. The bedroom smelled like mold and bleach and something worse I couldn't name. Drawers ripped out, light fixtures shattered, door off its hinges, the kind of damage that doesn't make sense unless it was done just to hurt you. And I stood there alone with a trash bag and no clue where to begin. Neighbors peeked out into the hallway like they were expecting a fight. No one said anything. One woman downstairs just shook her head when I passed and said, "Should have screened her better." And I wanted to scream. Not at Dana, not even at Kendra, but at myself, because they were right. I let it happen. I let them in. I gave them my keys and my trust and thought a printed lease would protect me, and it didn't. Nothing protected me, not the paperwork, not the cops, not the polite smile I practiced in the mirror before every meeting. I scrubbed that place every weekend for a month, spent my whole savings fixing the bathroom alone, replaced the carpet, repainted every wall, replaced 2 windows, and still it felt ruined, not visibly, but underneath, like it absorbed what happened, like it would never be clean again. I tried to move in myself, figured maybe if I lived there it would feel different, like mine again. But I couldn't sleep the first night. I kept thinking about that word on the mirror, kept hearing shouting that wasn't there. I left the next morning and never went back. Ended up staying with my sister for a while until I sold the place, dirt cheap, to a retired guy who said he didn't believe in bad energy. He'd seen worse, and I said, "Good luck." But what I meant was, God help you. Because that apartment took something from me, not just money or time. It took the idea that home was safe, that my things were mine, that trust was worth anything. And once that's gone, it doesn't come back, not really. Years passed, I moved twice, changed jobs, got married, then divorced. Life kept rolling like it does. But every time someone brought up renting property, my stomach tensed without permission. Coworkers talked about passive income like it was a hack, like it was easy money. Just hand over keys and cash rolls in. And I'd smile and say, "Not for me." Sometimes they'd push, ask why, and I'd just shrug, say something vague like, "Bad experience." Because I never wanted to unpack it again, not in a break room with someone who thought screening meant asking for a Facebook page. Sometimes people said I was stupid for selling that apartment, that I could have made real money by now. But they didn't see the mirror, the stains, the quiet hate that hung in the air like old smoke. I don't rent anymore. Not spaces, not furniture, not parts of myself I'm not ready to lose. And when friends ask if I'd ever try again, now that there's apps and contracts and 5-star reviews, I just laugh, like really. Laugh, because they think the problem was the process. But it wasn't, it was the people. It was letting strangers carry their chaos into a place that once held memories of my uncle's weird jazz records and my first solo dinner on a broken futon, and watching that turn into a pile of drywall dust and burned carpet. The money I lost hurt, sure, but what I really paid was the lesson, and I paid in full. I look at houses now and think, what if I just lived here quietly, no tenants, no lockboxes, no spare sets of keys taped under the sink, just me, some chipped mugs, one working stove, and a deadbolt that only I know the code to, and that's peace to me, not profit, not ROI, just knowing that I can put a glass down and it'll still be there in the morning, knowing the walls won't talk back, knowing no one's coming in unless I say so. And maybe that sounds bitter, maybe it is, but I earned it, the hard way, and I'm okay with that. Wanted to share my story about subletting, just to maybe warn someone who thinks it's easy extra income, because that's what I thought too, and it almost broke me. This was back in 2011, I just finalized my divorce, moved into the townhouse we used to share, and realized fast that I couldn't cover the mortgage alone, not with my admin job and a half-maxed out Discover card. I had a spare room upstairs that used to be his office, and I figured, hell, I'll rent it out for a few months, just until I catch up. I posted a listing on Craigslist, nothing fancy, just said, room for rent in quiet Northgate neighborhood, utilities included, no pets, no drama, and within a day I had 6 replies. Most were weird or gave off some gut no feeling, but one guy stood out. Matt, 33, worked in tech, quiet, said he traveled a lot, just needed a place to crash between gigs. We met at a Starbucks. He wore glasses and carried a laptop, didn't blink too much, didn't overtalk, offered to pay first and last month up front. I thought, finally, an adult. He moved in that weekend with 2 duffel bags and a box of wires, said he didn't need closet space, just the desk and internet. For the first 2 weeks I barely saw him. He left early, came back late, washed his own dishes, never played music. It was honestly perfect. I told my sister it felt like living with a polite ghost. Then week 3 things shifted, not dramatically, just small things. I'd hear soft clicking sounds at 2 a.m. or see the hallway light flick on and off like someone pacing. I chalked it up to anxiety or jet lag or whatever, but then I came home early from work one day, half day because our server crashed, and I heard voices upstairs, not shouting, but a full conversation, laughing, except when I walked in the front door everything went silent, like sitcom remote clicks silent. I called his name, no answer, went upstairs, door closed, then opened just a crack and he said, just on a call, except the room was dark and there was no headset, no laptop open, just a faint smell, something chemical and plasticky, like hot electronics and burnt tape. I said nothing, just walked back downstairs and sat on the couch with my heart thumping so loud I thought maybe I'd imagined it all. But over the next few days more weirdness stacked up. He started getting packages, like a lot of them, long boxes, heavy ones, delivered almost daily. I asked once what it was and he just said, parts. I didn't push, didn't want to seem paranoid. But the house started feeling tight, like the air was different, heavier. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. and smell something sharp, like solder and glue, and I started checking the smoke detectors twice a day. One night I swear I heard him whispering in a language I didn't recognize, and when I knocked he didn't answer, just opened the door later and said I must have been dreaming, and maybe I was, but I started locking my bedroom door. I'd never done that before. I felt stupid and dramatic, like I was making things up. But I also kept my purse in my room and bought a doorstop alarm on Amazon. I told myself I was overreacting, that this was just what sharing space felt like. But deep down I knew something was wrong, and I was too embarrassed to admit how far out of my depth I already was. I started keeping my keys in my pocket, even at home, just in case. I told myself it was paranoia, that Matt was just one of those socially awkward tech guys who talked to himself and didn't clean. But every day it felt more like I wasn't living with a person. I was living with a presence, something that didn't belong in a house, let alone one I used to feel safe in. The packages kept coming, now twice a day. Brown boxes sealed with industrial tape, no labels I could read, just numbers and barcodes. I asked him again what it was and he looked straight at me and said, server parts, then shut the door in my face, not rudely, just shut, like the conversation was over and I was wrong for starting it. One night I woke up to a low humming sound, like something mechanical. I went upstairs barefoot, stood in front of his door and felt the floor vibrating slightly, not shaking, not loud, but vibrating, like a machine was running behind the wall. I knocked. No answer. I said his name, nothing. I didn't go in. I was too scared to see what I didn't want to know. The next day I told a friend at work, just kind of venting, and she said, you need to get him out of your house. But how? He paid on time. He hadn't broken any laws. I had no proof of anything except that I felt like a hostage in my own living room. I started documenting things, photos of the boxes, timestamps of noises, writing down everything I smelled or heard. I even called a non-emergency line once and said, I'm not sure if this counts as suspicious activity. And the guy on the phone said, is anyone in danger? And I said, not yet. And he said, call back if that changes. That, not yet, stayed with me, like a curse. Like I'd just invited the danger in. A few days later I came home and found the kitchen light bulb removed, just gone, the fixture still warm, and Matt wasn't home. I texted him asking if he'd done anything to the lights and he replied, no, and that was it, nothing else. I barely slept that night. The air in the house was thick, heavy. I kept the TV on just for background noise. And every time I passed his door I felt like it was watching me, not him, the door, like something on the other side was holding its breath, waiting for me to touch the knob. I started locking myself in my room before sunset. I ate in there, changed in there, Charged my phone next to my bed in case I had to call someone fast. I felt crazy, like I'd created this fear out of nothing. But it didn't feel like nothing. It felt like walking past a basement you know better than to open. And then one night I came home and he was gone. Just gone. Room empty, mattress gone, desk gone, not cleaned, asterisk asterisk cleared asterisk asterisk. Like he'd packed in 10 minutes and never looked back. I walked in and the smell hit me first. Not rot, not mold, but something acidic and burnt. The walls were damp in patches, and on the floor were piles of plastic bits, wires, broken circuit boards, a stack of old routers, and something I still can't identify. Looked like a homemade switchboard or maybe a charger for something way bigger than a phone. No note, no goodbye, just silence. I stood there trying to decide if I was relieved or terrified, and then I went downstairs and called the police, because finally I had a reason. The officer who came was polite, young, looked like someone who still lived with his mom. He took one step into the room, looked around, and said, "You said he left suddenly?" And I said yes, a few hours ago maybe. He asked if anything was stolen and I said no. I think he brought everything that mattered to him, which wasn't much, just gear and wires and whatever the hell all that is. He crouched next to the pile of electronics and poked it with a pen, then pulled out a little flashlight and started scanning the corners, like he was expecting to find something still breathing. He didn't. He found a black duffel bag full of power cords, a dozen prepaid SIM cards in a Ziploc, and a whiteboard with scribbled diagrams that didn't make any sense unless you were fluent in whatever language he was using. Tech, madness, or both. The cop took photos, asked if I had his full name, and I gave him the Craigslist emails. The name Matt something, but I never saw a last name, not a license, not even mail. The officer nodded like this wasn't the first time he'd heard that, then told me he'd file a report but there probably wouldn't be much to follow up on unless I found something dangerous or criminal. And I said, how would I even know what that looks like? And he smiled like I wasn't supposed to. He gave me a card, said, call if anything changes, and left. Just like that. 15 minutes later I was alone again, standing in a room that didn't feel like mine, staring at a wall outlet that was melted around the edges like it had overheated for days. The smell was still there, sharp and industrial. I opened the windows even though it was raining, and sat on the floor like a hostage that's been rescued too late, and all I could think was how close I'd let someone get, how I'd eaten breakfast 20 feet away from this every day, made coffee while he built, what? A crypto mining rig? A surveillance hub? Something worse? I didn't know and didn't want to, but the questions kept crawling around in my brain, and I couldn't stop thinking about all the nights I locked my door and still felt watched. I took the rest of the week off work, told HR I was dealing with a personal issue, which wasn't a lie. I bagged up the trash and gloves, called a disposal service for the electronics, spent 4 hours cleaning every surface with vinegar and bleach, and still couldn't get rid of that scent. It was like it had soaked into the drywall, into my lungs, like part of him stayed behind just to remind me how blind I'd been. My sister offered to come help but I said no. I didn't want anyone else in the house, not yet. I didn't want to answer questions I couldn't finish. I didn't even want to speak. I just wanted quiet, but the kind of quiet where I wasn't waiting for something to break it. I didn't sleep upstairs for a month. I dragged my mattress down to the living room and kept a light on at night. I kept checking the front door, even after changing the locks. I started locking my car even in my own driveway. I kept every window shut tight. I knew he was gone, but the fear wasn't. It sat beside me, quietly, like a roommate I never agreed to live with. It's been years now. The house is mine again, technically, but there are still nights when I hear a hum that isn't there, or catch a smell that vanished long ago. Sometimes I wonder if trauma has its own sense of smell, something only your nervous system picks up, like the ghost of fear in the drywall. I never rented again, not a room, not a corner, not a couch. People said I overreacted, that I let one bad apple ruin it, but I don't see it that way. I didn't lose money, though I didn't lose sleep, though I really did. I lost something harder to replace. The feeling that I could ever be fully safe in my own home again if I let someone else in. I still get messages sometimes from people on forums. Hey, you still rent that room? And I don't answer. I just delete. My friends joke that I've become territorial. But it's not that. It's that I learned what it feels like when you hesitate to listen to your gut. When someone walks into your life with quiet shoes and no red flags, and by the time the warning signs start to blink, they're already in the walls. I see those, roommate wanted, flyers at cafes and get cold, like truly cold. I smile now, a polite tight smile, and tell people, no thanks, I like my space, and that's the truth, because it's mine, and because no one else gets to bring their chaos into it ever again. Subscribe, hit the like button, and explore more fascinating stories.